I feel like the worst thing that a book can do is make you feel indifferent. Even if it's bad, if you have to criticize it, if you have to hate on it, that's better because it makes you feel shit. It makes you talk about it and it makes you feel alive. Hey guys, Nina here and welcome back to More Than Fiction. So, I don't know how much you've been following me on Instagram or anywhere. I haven't been posting that much, sadly, but I was actually in the Dominican Republic on vacation, and now I'm back, and the weather sucks, and I have so many things to do, but I'm surviving. But however, the post-vacation depression is real right now. I don't know if that's even a term, but I'll make it a term if it's not. Anyways, I've had so much fun there. I also read some books to keep you updated. I started A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. Well, I finished it, but just the first book because I didn't take the second book with me, and I have special editions and I want to read them physically. I don't want to read them on my Kindle, so I didn't continue the series. But spoiler alert, that's the plan for this year, to finish it. Also, I reread The Inadequate Heir by Danielle L. Jensen, which is part of the Bridge Kingdom series. If you know the Bridge Kingdom, if you've heard of it and you haven't read it, you have to read it. And if you have, let me know your thoughts because I'm obsessed with that series, especially the second duology, The Inadequate Heir and The Endless War. Also, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, I actually read entirely on the plane. It was a 9-hour flight, and I started it and I couldn't stop. I didn't even stop to sleep. I just stopped to eat a little bit and then I just went right back to it. I didn't even stand. And when in the airplane, a 9-hour flight, that's a big deal. And I didn't even stand up to just kind of get my stretches in. I just went to the bathroom once and that's it. I was so invested in that book. And if you've been following me for a while, you know that I'm a fantasy girly. So normally I read fantasy books, okay? And this was definitely not fantasy. It's a mystery, a thriller, and I have read them in the past, I think, but it's been a very, very long time since I did. And actually, that's one of my goals for this year too, to just kind of be more diverse in what I read and what I consume with my eyes, I wanted to be a little bit different. I wanted to mix it up because sometimes it does happen that, I just read too much of the same thing, I guess, of the same type of plot. I don't know how to even call it, a trope maybe. And, I just kind of get tired of it. And then I go watch TV shows and movies. But maybe now, instead of doing that, I can just switch up to another genre and not get tired at all. Anyways, now let's get to the point, I guess. Here today, we're going to be talking about the 25 books that I want to read in 2025, obviously. And if I did this sooner, I would have obviously put The Endless War on this list as well, and A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I'm gonna put the second book in the trilogy for this one. Spoiler again, whatever. And also Onyx Storm. I started Onyx Storm on the way back, but honestly, it didn't grab my attention as much as A Good Girl's Guide to Murder did, so I did not read the entire book on the plane. I actually just read 10% or something because I slept the entire way back for some reason. Anyways, yeah, I've been kind of thinking about what to put on this list, and honestly, I went through a lot of screenshots because usually when a book catches my attention, it's on Instagram or on TikTok, and I screenshot everything. And sometimes it happens that I delete my screenshots all at once because I just have so many pictures and videos on my phone, especially with this podcast. I make content for the pod too, so it's really my phone is dying, guys. My memory is dying and it's awful, but fine. I have to get to that. But thankfully, I did not delete the last year's screenshots. So I have a lot of some books that just kind of caught my attention. Obviously on Goodreads as well. I just, click wanna read. So I scroll through that, and yeah, 25 books came just like that. And normally I don't do this, I don't plan what I'm gonna read in a year. It just depends on my mood. It's it depends what catches my attention in that moment. I never plan. I'm not a planner, you know? And even with this podcast, obviously, if you've been following me for a long, the episodes are not as regular as they used to be, because I used to have a podcast co-host and she was the more organized of the two of us, you know? So she kind of kept me in check. But honestly, like, I think even if I still had a co-host, it would be difficult to post every week now, just because I also have a new job. I'm working as a radio host, and, you know, it's been a journey. I love it. It's amazing, but it's, you know, it's not that easy, and I'm learning a lot along the way, and I've been focusing on that. So, yeah. Anyways, let's get back to the point. I'm rambling here. Let's, I guess, just discuss what kind of books I'm into so you kind of get the picture. And like I said, I'm trying to mix it up. That's why when I made this list, I wanted to be as diverse as possible. I think it still has mostly fantasy, just because that's my thing, okay, that's my jam. But I also put some thriller mystery books in there, because obviously I loved A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, so hello. I also put some romances in, because in my experiences, I really dig romances in the summer. So I'll probably be reading those in the summer when I'm like chilling by the beach again. And what else? I also put in some sci-fi dystopian books, and also I think it's a historical fiction, but also kind of a romance. I'll get to that later. But yeah, like I've said before, mostly I read fantasy. I'm into like romantasy. I really like it when a book has romance in it. You know, a book needs to have romance in it actually for me to really, really enjoy it. But it's not, of course it's not, I mean, the primary thing. Like, once I start, and if the story is good, if the characters are interesting, I'll be fine. But a book attracts me more if I see immediately that it has a strong romantic plot or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I will read that book sooner than a book that doesn't have that. So, for example, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. Like, there's no romance there. Like, the girl, yeah, she has a crush, okay? But it's nothing. Nothing happens. It's just no romance at all. And I loved it. I ate it up. So, you know, I think I have to open my horizons and just dive into other genres, into other tropes, whatever. But yeah, just so you have like a sense of my taste. That's why I'm explaining this. I also love a good enemies to lovers plot. Like, I think that one is my favorite. I just love it when the main like romantic interests, when they disagree, when they hate each other basically. And it's enough if they just dislike each other, honestly, but when they hate each other, oh, I live for that, okay? Like forbidden romances, you know, stuff like that. That's really my jam. And when it comes to plot, it's just really important for me that something is always going on, you know, whether it's political intrigue, whether it's action, and ideally a balance of both, okay? And I'm just gonna say that The Inadequate Heir, for example, that duology in the Bridge Kingdom series, and just the entire Bridge Kingdom series, honestly, has a really good balance between all of those elements. It has an amazing romance, some insane political shit going on, and also a lot of action. It just has everything I love. So I can't recommend that book series enough. I'm gonna do a podcast about the second duology, for sure. Like an episode about it. Can't help myself. What else is there to say? I'm also very character driven. I'm a character driven reader. That's important. So, of course, world building is important. It's important that, especially if it's a fantasy, that the world is different, that it's something special, and if there's like a magical system, that it's explained well, that, you know, there aren't like loopholes, because sometimes that does bug me, but I'm not that big of a nitpicker when it comes to that, because honestly, characters and people is what matters to me. Like, if the characters are described and written well, and if they're complex and deep, and if they bring out all kinds of emotions out of me, I'm sold. You know, that's what matters to me. Also, just that the book makes me feel good. Like, I've read some books that haven't been the best written books in my life. Like, for example, oh my gosh, what is that series? Let me just check real quick. Ugh, I can't find it right now, but it's basically like a dark romance. Also, the first time that I've read a dark romance and it just sucked me right in. And it's like not the best written thing in the world. It's not. But it just made me feel really good in that moment. I got sucked in. I couldn't stop reading. I couldn't put the book down. I was invested in the characters. I wanted to know what will happen to them, how the story's gonna end, even if at times it was actually predictable. But it just made me feel so many feels, okay? And that's what matters. It also kind of depends on my mood, you know? For example, I might start reading a book about vampires. And I don't know, maybe I read something about vampires like a week ago and I'm tired of vampires and I just hate the book because I'm not in the mood to read it. And I might think, oh, the book's not that good, but it's actually just the fact that I'm not, like, you know. And that's what I've learned about myself. So when I start something and it just doesn't pull me in, even though it is something that I would normally be into, I just take a step back and put it on my shelf and wait for a second and maybe I'll come back to it. And I think this is what happened also when I was reading, I'm not sure if it was A Court of Mist, no, it wasn't A Court of Mist and Fury. When I started that, like ACOTAR, I was immediately invested. And even ACOTAR, like you could say that ACOTAR isn't the best written like book series in the world. I mean, it's not. I'm pretty sure it's not. And yet it just pulled me in. I got invested. I wanted to know more. And I talked a lot about it on this podcast. I talked a lot about it on social media. And yeah, it kind of just made me talk about it. Even I had some criticisms. I had a lot of criticisms. So if you're interested in that, go listen to the episodes. But I think it's still a good book series because it made me feel and it made me think and it made me discuss, you know? I feel like the worst thing that a book can do is make you feel indifferent. I think that's the worst. Even if it's bad, even if you have something bad to say, if you have to criticize it, if you have to hate on it, that's better because it makes you feel shit. It makes you talk about it. It makes you emotional and it makes you feel alive, you know? Even if it's not as good and you wish it was better. But when a book makes you feel indifferent and you're just like, about it, well, that's when, you know, that's when it really sucks. It's not a good feeling at all. Like, you know, we read because we want to feel shit. So, basically, what I love. Fantasy, enemies to lovers, forbidden romance, character-driven books. If I summarize it real quick, okay? And now let's go to the list. So basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna list the 25 books that I plan on reading. Then I'm gonna kind of summarize them a little bit. Like, don't worry, 25 books, that's a lot. A sentence or two on what they're about. And I might linger on some that I'm like most excited about, and I might try to convince you to read them too with me, you know? There are also books in this list of mine that I will be discussing on this podcast. I will make episodes specifically for those books, or well, I have a plan, but if it happens that I start reading the book and I hate it, or I'm indifferent about it actually, more that, if I'm indifferent about the book, and if I just don't have a lot to say about it, I'm obviously not gonna film an episode about it, obviously. But yeah, if I have a lot to say, even if it's negative, I might do a dissing episode, like, I don't care. So stick along with me for that, and if you've read any of these, if you have any recommendations of your own, if you want to add something, you're always welcome to text me, comment on all of my platforms. So without further ado, let's get to it. So when it comes to fantasy, I will be reading Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson, Songbird and the Heart of Stone, which is actually the third book in the Crowns of Nyaxia book series by Carissa Broadbent. Then we'll have When the Moon Hatched, which is Moonfall series by Sarah A. Parker. Quicksilver by Callie Hart, which is also part of a series, Fae and Alchemy. Then Spark of the Everflame by Penn, which is part of a Kindred's Curse. Then Heartless Hunter, which is part of the Crimson Moth series by Kristen Ciccarelli. Also, excuse me if I'm not pronouncing these names correctly. I'm sorry. Then we have the Book of Azrael, which is by Amber V. Nicole. This is also, I think, a part of a book series. Oh, it's Gods and Monsters. Gods and Monsters. Also excited about this one. I've seen it everywhere. And then we have Legendborn, which is written by Tracy Deonn, and it's part of the Legendborn Cycle series. So that's it for my fantasy picks. It's basically 8 books in total, which is out of the 25 book. That's not a lot, okay? Like, remember, I read fantasy mostly. So, yeah, this is a big deal for me that I just picked 8. Yeah. Okay, moving on. Then we have thriller, mystery. So, we have The Institute by Stephen King. Okay, and then we have Good Girl, Bad Blood, which is the second book in A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, right? Which I've already read on my plane, like I explained. This is a spoiler one. By Holly Jackson, by the way. Then we have The Risk, which is part of the Mindfuck series by Satie Abbey. Then we have Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. And last but not least, That's Not My Name by Megan Lally. So 5 books in total for thriller mystery. That's a lot. But like I said, the one that I read on the plane kind of blew my mind. I really liked it. And moving on to our romance section, which, I mean, I'm not saying I'm gonna read all of the romances just in the summer. I might do some in the spring. But no, I think throughout the year I'm gonna be mixing it up. I'm gonna be diverse about it so that I don't get bored, I guess. Okay, so for romances, we have Funny Story by Emily Henry. This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune. The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. Butcher and Blackbird by Brianne Weaver. And this one is part of the Ruinous Love trilogy. Sounds interesting. And another one by Emily Henry, which is Great Big Beautiful Life. This one's coming out in April, I think. It hasn't been released yet. And Pictures of You by Emma Gray. So I guess that's it for romances, even though I think this one might be added there too, but it's like, I put it under historical fiction. It's The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Damn, that's 7 romance books in total, which is a lot when I think about it. Hopefully I'll manage, because like I said, I do love a romance in my books, a good romance, but there also has to be some action, some, a little bit of something extra. So we'll see how this goes. But I think I did pick these with caution, and I think all of them have a little bit of something, but we'll get to that later. At last, we have science fiction, or dystopian actually. I really love dystopian movies, TV shows, books, but it's been a while since I read anything dystopian. So this is gonna bring me back to my childhood, because I fell in love with reading actually because of dystopian books like Hunger Games and Divergent. These worlds just pulled me in. And if you think about it, all of these worlds, all of these stories, they also have some pretty strong romances in them, like Triss and 4, We'll see how it's gonna go with these stories. So we have Sunrise of the Reaping, which is the Hunger Games prequel, and it's gonna be about Hamish. Okay, and that's all I have to say here. Can't wait. Then we have Sight, which is part of the Arc of a Sight book series by Neil Shusterman. The Fifth Wave by Rick Yancey, also part of the Fifth Wave book series. And Red Rising, part of the Red Rising saga by Pierce Brown. And I know I said this is the last section, which it is the last section, but I actually forgot to add one book to the fantasy genre. I added it later and I forgot to write it down there. But it's Immortal by Su Lin Tan. And I think this one is a relatively new book, and I'm excited about it. It's called Immortal. Check it out. Okay, so that's my entire list. All 25 books. I basically just blurted them out. That's it. But now, like I said, I'm gonna, give you a little bit something extra. Maybe I'll convince you to read them if you haven't heard of them. Or not, but I'm here because I'm excited to read them and I want to talk about them. So let's dive right in. Basically, why I chose some of these books, like Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. How to even say this? Brandon Sanderson is an author that I have never even read yet. Well, I haven't read him, his books. You get my point. I have heard so much about this man. It's insane. People say that you can say you're a real fantasy fan if you haven't read at least one of his books. And if that's the case, well, I have to, okay? I'm under pressure here. Everyone's pressuring me to read his books. Mostly like actually my ex-co-host. She is the one that is in love with Brandon Sanderson. She talked a lot about him. And you have some of our previous episodes in which we do wrap-ups and book recommendations. And I think that in all of those episodes, she kind of mentions him at least once. So, of course, I heard a lot about him. And I think that she's the one who told me that Warbreaker, this book that I want to read, is actually kind of similar to Bridge Kingdom. So I thought to myself, well, if I want to start with Brandon Sanderson, like with one of his books, and I want to love him, why not start with a book that kind of, for some reason, resembles a book series that I'm obviously in love with, you know? I'm not sure in what way it resembles it, if I'm completely honest. Like, we didn't dive that deep into it. But, you know, it stuck with me. I couldn't get it out of my head. I put it on my Goodreads. I listed it in my notes. So this year is the year that I'm reading Warbreaker. And you never know, I might make even an episode about it. And it's actually about two sisters. They're both princesses, and Brandon Sanderson, he's really known for his like world building supposedly, but I have read some reviews just real quick. I didn't want to read too much and get too many impressions, but some people have said that it's a character-driven book, that the characters are really well developed, and like I said, I'm a big character person, so that's good. But yeah, I did hear that Brandon, he's really great with world building, that all of his like worlds, his magical systems, that they're all so well developed. And Brandon Sanderson's adult fiction books actually take place in the Cosmere universe. So basically all of these characters, like in so many books that he writes, are part of the Cosmere. So that's pretty cool, that's pretty interesting. And also, if you have any other recommendations for me, for like a new Brandon Sanderson reader, you can let me know. Okay, then we have Songbird and the Heart of Stone. Oh my gosh, so this is part of the Crowns of Nyaxia. I'm not gonna dive too deep here, but basically it's obvious that I'm gonna read this book this year because I have already read the previous two books in the series, which is The Serpent and the Wings of Night and The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. So I already have an episode out about these two books. You can go check them out. I actually discussed them with my previous co-host and we disagree about some stuff. So I think it's an interesting debate if you want to learn more. But first, of course, go read the books because it's spoilery. And anyway, yeah, this is the third book in the series. And of course, I have to see what happens, but the thing is that it's made out of duologies. So the first two books are a duology, therefore already finished story of two main characters, and this third book is gonna follow another character in that universe, and this character is gonna get her or his own duology. And then I think there's gonna be a third duology as well. I think it's like that. Like in Bridge Kingdom, the same thing actually. Okay, then we have When the Moon Hatched, which is part of the Moonfall series by Sarah A. Parker. So I'm not gonna dive too deep into this. I think that the next book in this series is actually being released in August. I think it's August, but I'm pretty sure like one time this year. So I think I'm gonna schedule this a little bit and I'm gonna probably read it right before the next book comes out so that I don't have to wait too long. And also, if I like it, like I said, I might do an episode about it and I want everything to be up to date, you know, fresh. So that's it for the Moon Hatch. Then we have Quicksilver, which another book that I have heard so much about and people have hyped it up so much that I'm kind of scared to read it, if I'm completely honest, just because when books are really hyped, they usually disappoint. I don't know, like I said, it depends if you've been following me, but Fourth Wing, for example, that series didn't really blow my mind. Like, I like it. Obviously, I'm reading Onyx Storm. I wouldn't be reading it if I didn't. But it's not that big of a deal. I mean, it's not worth the hype, in my opinion. Also stretches out way too long. And I think that the third book is gonna be the same, but doesn't matter. So yeah, that's my kind of, my fear when it comes to Quicksilver. But we'll see. Now, okay, the one that I really want to talk about, just real quick, but you know, Heartless Hunter, which is part of the Crimson Moth series. And the next book, okay, in this series is gonna be released on February 18th. Okay, so the plan is to read this real soon after Onyx Storm, and hopefully I love it and I want to discuss it. And we'll see how it goes. But it's basically an enemies to lovers meets rebellion and revenge in a world where witches are hunted. A girl with dangerous magic and a ruthless witch hunter cross paths, leading to an explosive story of forbidden love and revolution. Okay, what more do I have to say? This is basically everything that I love. I mean, in this little description, that's the feeling that I got. So I think I found a TikTok about it, and this girl was raging, and she just gave like this brief little description, and I was like, sold. So when I saw that the new book is released basically this month, what am I waiting for? I've also heard that this book has like a lot of plot twists that you don't expect, and I'm all about that because normally, honestly, most of the time when I read books, I kind of guessed plot twists. Like, it's hard to surprise me these days. So we'll see if this one manages to do that. Also, the characters are supposedly really relatable and complex. I heard that you had like some morally gray characters, and sign me up for that. I love it when characters are morally gray, okay? Sometimes I feel like in our book universe, book talk, bookstagram, whatever, it happens that people say that they love a morally gray character, but when they come across one, they don't really. They judge him or her, you know? But no, I don't. Those are the ones that I live for. So, of course, I'm excited for The Heartless Hunter. And another one that I want to mention is The Institute, for example, by Stephen King. So Stephen King is another author, just like Brandon Sanderson, like that you have to, I think, read at least one of his books. And guess what? I haven't. I have not read any of his books yet. I have watched, I think, all of his movies, like that are based on his books, and I loved all of them. So what am I waiting for? God knows what. But yeah, I chose The Institute because I actually did like a search of what book I should start with if I wanna read Stephen King, and a lot of people recommended The Institute, and it's basically about the government kidnapping kids with special abilities, and they lock them away for experiments. So it basically follows a group of children trying to escape a sinister institution where their powers are being used for something much darker than they realize. I mean, superpowers, kids, like Stephen King, he's known for kids. Like in every story he tells, basically there are children involved. Like It, for example, it has a really cute group of kids. So I think that this group might be if I judge by the movie It, in my head it sounds really good. Hopefully it is. Hopefully I'm not overhyping this. And also, just like I said, superpowers, love that. I watch all of the Marvel movies, every movie that has people with some super abilities in it I will watch, or TV shows. But I don't know what, for some reason I haven't read books that, fantasy books, like, okay, yeah, fine. In fantasy books, people have abilities, but like this is a bit different. This isn't fantasy, it's contemporary. Okay, then what I want to talk about is The Risk. This is so interesting because I saw, I didn't see The Risk as the title. I saw the Mindfuck series, and I was like, what is the Mindfuck series? And for some reason, I don't know, that title really kind of draw me in, even though I don't use many swear words, by the way. I'm like really, I'm a good girl when it comes to that, and I'm actually not attracted to swear words, but if they're like written as the title of the book, sign me up, okay? Like, I'm here. I know the book is gonna be good. And basically, when I read the synopsis a little bit, it really hooked me. And like, listen to this, it might hook you too. So, a serial killer and an FBI agent walk into a bar. Okay, that's already, like, for me, this was it, but still. So basically, it's a gripping dark romance, and it follows a woman seeking revenge and a man unknowingly hunting her until their worlds collide. And that's all I'm gonna say. I don't want to spoil you too much. I don't want to spoil myself too much. But, come on. A story about a serial killer and an FBI agent falling in love? Hello. Another fact about me, if you don't know, I love serial killer TV shows, documentaries. I love reading about them, but not like in this kind of way, more just, actual facts in the real world. It's intriguing. So this book, I feel like, is made for me. We'll see how it goes. So a few romances that I want to talk about. For example, The 7 Year Slip. This is another book that I'm really excited about. Like, honestly, what intrigued me about it is just the title, like The 7 Year Slip. I don't know, it's a cool title, isn't it? You don't know what it's about. And when I read a little bit of the synopsis, it just blew my mind away. I did not expect it. Like, imagine falling in love with someone only to realize that they live 7 years in the past, okay? What does that even mean? How does this happen, okay? She falls in love with someone who lives in the past. Like, so what? A time travel thing is involved? This is all very... And that's all I know about this book, that she falls in love with someone who lives in the past. That's it. I know nothing else. And obviously, I'm very intrigued by this. I want to know more, and I want it to be like a movie right now, even though I haven't read the book. So I'm hooked. I hopefully, just by explaining this to you, I hooked you too, if you haven't heard of this book, of course. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. Oh, and another one that is also about a serial killer, or two serial killers, and it's Butcher and Blackbird. And it's basically about two serial killers, one twisted game, a love story you won't forget. And it's also a dark romance for those of us who love morally gray characters and intense chemistry. I already explained that I'm kind of into TV shows, whatever, about serial killers, so now I have two books on my list that involve this kind of a situation, so I'm excited about that. Had to mention it. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Okay, now listen to this. Have you heard of Daisy Jones and the Six? Have you heard of it? Because if you have not, I don't know where you live, okay? It's basically written by Taylor Jenkins Reid, so the same author that wrote The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and it's amazing. And I'm being so annoying right now because I actually am talking about the TV show and not about the book. The thing is that I haven't read the book because the TV show kind of broke me. Okay, when I watched the TV show, I could not stop thinking about it. It's like my Roman Empire. I still think about it every day, honestly. The ending, the story, everything is so good. I keep convincing everyone I know to watch that damn TV show, okay? My boyfriend still doesn't want to because he thinks it's like a cheesy romance or whatever. He doesn't understand that it's so much more and it's annoying and frustrating. But I can't read the book, okay? Because if the show broke me, the book is gonna break me even more. Just because books are always better. They're even more in depth. You understand the feelings, the sentiments of the characters even more. And I just can't do that to myself. So I can't read the book, but I am pretty sure it's amazing if the TV show was that good. And yes, this book was also recommended to me, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's great, but honestly, I have avoided this book for a very long time. Okay, I have known about this book for a very long time, but I've avoided it because it sounds kind of sad, honestly. And I'm still kind of scared to read it. It's basically about an aging Hollywood legend that's telling her story about love, ambition, and the sacrifices she made to survive in a world that demands perfection. And that kind of sounds like I'm gonna be reading about a lot of tragic love stories. Because she's obviously, she's an elderly woman, and she's describing her past and the people she was with, the people she was in love with, and what happened to them. I am assuming that a lot of them either died or just it didn't work out because, like it said, she's a Hollywood legend, so she had to sacrifice a lot. She probably sacrificed a lot for her career, including some people she loved. And I also think that she's bi, so she has dated women and men, so that's gonna be also interesting and different, and I'm in for it. So I'm excited about this because it sounds like a very interesting concept, but it scares me. Also, I have a really soft spot for elderly people. I have to say that. They're just, I don't know, I love old people. I think they're so cute, and sometimes when I see them and they look so helpless and alone, and I think that happens a lot in life, that their loved ones just forget about them, or I don't know what happens, but it just makes me so sad. And the idea of reading this from an elderly woman's perspective, it just scares me, okay? But we'll see how it goes, right? I'll keep you updated. Just follow me. Another one that I'm excited about is Pictures of You. So Pictures of You, I actually added it to my list without knowing what it's about, simply because of the name. Because do you know the song Pictures of You by The Cure? I love that song. Like, I am in love with that song, and I fell in love with it when I was watching The Vampire Diaries as a teenager. And there was this scene, I don't know, I'm not sure if you watched Vampire Diaries, but I'm gonna tell you anyway. There was this scene, like, I think it was prom or something, when the main characters, they went to prom or to a party, and there were, like, just memories of them in high school, pictures on the walls, on, like, PowerPoint presentations, just, you know, them looking happy, young, cheery, and all of this after so many tragedies happened in their life. They went through so much shit, and just watching those memories, it was just so cute. And this song was playing in the background, you know, these pictures of you, and it's so freaking cute, so cute, and I'm getting goosebumps right now. So when I saw the name of this book, I remembered that song, and I was like, I have to read this. I know, silly. And I think that when I'm gonna be reading the book, I'm probably gonna be, you know, kind of singing that song or like playing it in the background. Maybe the author even mentioned it. If she did, I will be screaming. But yeah, it's basically about two people that are connected by tragedy and find hope in each other. And it's basically, like, I didn't write the synopsis down right here, but if I remember correctly, a woman, she gets into an accident and she can't remember much. She can't remember her husband, so she basically starts remembering little fragments of her life, and it's probably complicated and twisted, and I think it's gonna be interesting and also sad again. See, like, these books, I feel like that's why I've avoided romances, because they scare me. I feel like the best books makes you feel, like, even those sad emotions, deep emotions, and I'm afraid of that. I kind of tend to avoid that. I want to escape them. That's why I read fantasy, because it's like not, you know, you're a bit more detached because you know this world isn't real. You still get attached to the characters because even if the world isn't real, their emotions are real. Bad shit can still happen, like, I don't know, a pet dragon dies, but it might remind you of your dog dying or something, you know, you still get attached, but it's a bit different. But when you read something contemporary and it feels like you're that person, well, it's a bit more, you know what I mean. I hope you know what I mean. So I'm scared of that, but it intrigued me. So I'm gonna dive through these ones I want to mention them, but I'm not gonna get into it too much. So Sunrise of the Reaping, like I said, it's the Hunger Games prequel, follows Hamish's story. I love Hamish. I think he's an amazing character. I loved him in the books. I loved him in the movies. So I'm so glad we're getting his prequel. I haven't read the other prequel, by the way, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, just because I watched the movie first and it made me sad. Like, I feel like I'm repeating myself. I don't want to read books that I feel like will make me feel sad. I know I'm challenging myself now. I might read The Snakes too, but for now I'm gonna do Hamish and we'll see how it goes. Then The Fifth Wave, I want to read this because I wanted to add dystopian books on my list, and also I have watched the Fifth Wave movie. I think that I'm not sure if it's gonna have a continuation or if it was cancelled. Hopefully I'm wrong and it wasn't, but you know, whatever, we have the books. So I want to read the books too because I kind of like the movie. It could have been better, but I think that the books have a lot of potential, so we'll see. Then Scythe is another dystopian book, and it's basically about a world where people only die if sanctioned sites choose them, and two teens are thrown into a brutal competition to become the next Reapers of Death. So death in their world, I suppose, is no longer natural. That sounds intriguing. And then we have Red Rising, which is basically, supposedly, the Hunger Games meets Game of Thrones in space. So I imagine a very intriguing political system with games, you know? And I'm all about games. I love books and movies that have games involved. I actually just finished Squid Game and some other shows that are similar, and I actually posted an episode about it, that I recommend shows that are similar to Squid Games and they have kind of games or a similar vibe, and you should listen to that. Okay, so that's it basically for my list. These are all the books. Like right now, when I was describing them, I obviously didn't mention all of them. It would take me way too long. I feel like I've been talking too long already, but I just had to, these are the ones that I'm most excited about, and I just can't wait. And like I said, stay tuned. The fantasy books that are part of a series, and all of these that I mentioned, I think are having like a new book in the series released this year. I think, like I said, I'm gonna schedule them in a way to post them when the time is right, like right before the new book is released or something like that, so that also you get a recap of the previous book while I'm also being fresh with the episodes I post. But I'll probably do some of these other books too. If I really fall in love with any of them, I'll probably have to talk about them. I won't be able to help myself, and you're gonna be hearing from me again. And another thing, by the end of the year, I'm gonna be doing a wrap-up, and I'm probably gonna be wrapping up these books. So if I'm not gonna be making separate episodes about them, I'm gonna be wrapping them up in that episode. And also I'll probably be adding other books that I'm going to read this year. I'll obviously read more than just 25 books. And another thing that I'm thinking about is maybe that I should do like a episode like in the summer, so in the middle of the year. So I'll see. I might do like a mid-year wrap-up and a end-of-year wrap-up. If you have any recommendations about that, let me know. But we will be discussing these books, worry not. And if you have any other books that you want me to discuss, also let me know. Because I'm all ears, and there's never too many books to read. I can always just add them to my list, and they'll be staying there for a while, but I will get to it, okay? Like some of these books, like I said, have been on my list for a while, and now I'm being serious about it. Because like obviously I also decided to do this episode because I told myself, if I put it out there, if I challenge myself in this kind of a public way, I am saying I will be reading all of these books, and I'm gonna be doing a wrap-up about them and probably filming episodes about them. That's a lot of promises to make. And if I'm making these promises, I'm sure gonna keep them. That's just the person I am. Yeah. I'm amazing, I know. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I'm excited about this. Like I said, the next episode is probably gonna be Owning Storm by Rebecca Yarros. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully it's not gonna be a dissing episode. I think it might be a balance of both. Because if you listen to my Fourth Wing episode and Iron Flame episode, I have discussed those two books with my previous co-host, and we kind of dissed Fourth Wing a lot. Well, we liked Iron Flame better than Fourth Wing, even though we have read comments online. The general public opinion is that they like Fourth Wing better than Iron Flame, which is interesting. And I think it has to do with the fact that the expectations for Iron Flame were probably huge, Fourth Wing was really good for a lot of people, so the expectations were huge and they were not met. And that's why they didn't like it that much. But for me and my co-host, we were kind of excited about Fourth Wing, I guess, because everyone hyped it up and we read it so much later. We did not read it when everyone else was reading it. So, our expectations were high and they were not met. Well, for this one, I don't know, Owning Storm, I'm not even sure if I had any expectations. I haven't been really thinking about this book series at all that much. So even when I started reading it, I wasn't that excited about it, but I also wasn't, sad that I have to now read this book while I have other books to read. No, that's not the case. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. And also, like I said, I have the Bridge Kingdom on my agenda. Follow me on Instagram, follow me on TikTok. On Instagram, I kind of update you guys about what I'm gonna be doing in the future as much as I possibly can, because my schedule is all over the place. Also, subscribe to this podcast and rate it, okay? 5 stars, please. If you don't like it, don't rate it, okay? Just go away. But no, yeah, ratings, subscriptions, all of this helps other people find this podcast. It's, it's important. So if you can, do that. Pretty please. And yeah, that's it for today's episode. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And see you next week. Bye!